Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Chopra. India has successfully conducted its first trial of a high-powered laser weapon, the Mk2A. The trial was conducted at the National Open Air Range in Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. The advanced laser weapon system tracked drone swarms and a UAV mid-flight. The weapon locked on to the targets and deployed a high-energy laser beam to successfully destroy them. Apart from causing structural damage to the drones, the Mk2A also disabled surveillance sensors and the antenna. Its ability to deliver precision, speed and lethality in seconds makes it one of the most effective counter-drone systems developed so far. Designed and developed indigenously, this directed energy weapon represents a breakthrough for India's armed forces. What is interesting is that this development comes as drone warfare is gaining more and more prominence. We have seen drones being used in the ongoing global conflicts such as the Russia-Ukraine war as well as the Israel-Hamas war. Therefore, this test marks a major milestone in India's futuristic defense capabilities. In fact, DRDO Chairman Dr. Samir Kamath has pointed to the fact that India has now joined once again an elite club of select nations, including the US, Russia and China, who have demonstrated this capability. But what does this mean for India and the rest of the world? We take that conversation forward. I have with me on the broadcast Major General A.K. Sivach. We also have with us on the broadcast Major General Dhruv Katoch. I have with me Wing Commander Sudhakaran, and we have with us Major General Sudhakarji as well. Let me begin this conversation with Major General Dhruv Katoch. Major General Dhruv Katoch, your first thoughts on India now joining, as I've mentioned earlier, a select club of nations who have demonstrated this specific ability.
Thank you, Devika. In my view, I think it is a very major development because seeing the type of challenges which we are facing nowadays on our borders and also, to protect vital targets, I think this is a very important step. Now, when we are looking at the borders, the Pakistanis are using drones to drop drugs, to drop weapons, and to drop ammunition, arms, and multifarious purposes. Drones can also be used now because the technology is available to take on high-profile targets anywhere in the country. It depends on where you launch them from. So if you can actually get these drones to a particular area, then the surrounding area can become a target. So I think drone warfare has placed great vulnerability on the nation, which is why now we need to protect point targets, and of course we need to have this protection along the border from UAVs and drones flying in with nefarious goods. So with this technology now, and it's a very low cost option. It has been developed indigenously in India, and I think it is going to radically alter the rules of the game. Very few countries have this technology, as you have rightly pointed out, and India is now in that elite club. It remains to be seen how quickly we can actually deploy this with the forward troops. The sooner the better, because now that the technology is ours, I'm quite certain that a very rapid progress will be made in equipping the forward troops with it and also in protecting our vital establishments. Devika.
Okay, I want to bring in Major General A.K. Sivach into the conversation as well. Major General A.K. Sivach, your thoughts on the same. This new laser weapon system that has now been successfully tested by India, how big of a game changer is this?
Devika, no doubt, this is a great game changer. See, the complete combat environment has changed after the invention of drones. They have got utility both in conventional warfare as well as in low-cost warfare. As far as the conventional warfare, the way they are start now targeting the armor columns, it has made a difference in the battlefield. And to counter that, we did not have too many options. In fact, the countering was so costly that if a drone cost X amount, and then to counter that, you were utilizing almost 10x, because you are also using a weapon system which is highly costly. That's what the Iron Dome system has shown as far as Israel-Hamas war. when the Hamas is using drones or the Houthi rebels using drones or Iran is using drones, to counter that, what Iron Dome is using it a high explosive counter system which is highly costly. But this laser system which has been invented now by very few countries have changed the rule of the game, and very rightly brought by Dana Katoch. It is US, China and Russia, and India is the fourth country. In fact, Israel also, like India, is on the verge of developing. Now, as far as three issues one has to say. The soft kill is the best kill. There are two kills as far as drones are concerned to make it ineffective. One is hard kill, that you fire a missile which is very costly and it completely destroy the drone. The another one is the soft kill, that is through the laser. One is the laser is the fast, it is highly accurate, its speed is like light, and it makes it ineffective. It basically destroys the sensor system. It also affects its control system, and this is the best way of neutralizing the drone. And as we see that as the situation is unfolding, the drones have become one of the best weapon system in the world. And to counter it, you need a technology that which is as cheap as drones and as effective as drones. And I suppose India has developed that. Now remember that not only that in combat warfare, the drones are being used also for sending drugs, like especially India-Pakistan border. The drones have been utilized by Pakistan last 2 years in a great scale. They have a drone brigade. Not only that, they are sending drugs, weapon, ammunition through the drones. And now IB sector, which was not that much, one can say, effective, now has become more effective from Pakistan side, because they can send the drone through the drones, all these weapon system and drugs, even up to 50 kilometers. Now, so you need a technology to counter that. You need a technology to counter number of drones together. And that's what India has developed. Now, the second issue which is coming is in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, in again Jammu and Kashmir, the drones are being utilized by the Pakis to send their weapons and drugs. Because earlier, what was happening is that whenever the infiltration taking place through the track, through the militant, they need to bring their own weapon system. They need to bring their weapon and ammunition. As on today, terrorists can infiltrate from place A, and drones can be utilized to send their weapons as well as their ammunition. So this has changed the complete complex. But once we have this anti-drone strategy, and that too a soft kill, which is not costly but very effective, has also made complete, rules have been changed. Now, two, three things still stand out. What happened is that obviously this new technology which has been there, the laser, will make a tremendous impact. But what you need to also do is develop it in a large scale, because drones today have been utilized not only by Pakistan, also by the Chinese in a big way in the line of access control. And the second thing which is there is a coordination which requires in different agencies. It is not only the Indian Army which will use it, it has to also be utilized by CAPF, BSF, CRPF. Now, another issue which is there, as drones have changed the rules, are that if you see the Russia-Ukraine war, that the drones have been used deep inside Russia. Obviously, they couldn't have gone from the border area of Ukraine, but they have been used from the Russia itself. So the point is that overground worker and sleeper cell can also use the drones on the instruction of their masters, and they can create havoc. So therefore, this anti-drone strategy which has been developed by India and by the DRDO is a game changer, and it is a very fruitful step in the right direction. Devika.
Okay, all right. I want to bring in on that note Wing Commander Sudhakaran as well. Wing Commander Sudhakaran, we have seen somewhere a drone race that now continues. For example, in the Russia-Ukraine war, the Ukrainian armed forces were able to quite effectively use Turkish-made TB2 drones to blunt the armored blitzkrieg in a way that happened on the capital Kyiv. Hamas used suicide drones to take out some critical Israeli observation posts and defenses on the Gaza border. And we've also seen Israeli drones scanning buildings now in Gaza before fighters enter and hunt for Hamas operatives and their hostages in the tunnel. So we clearly see that the race to perfect the offensive, which is the drone capability, is on. But how crucial is this race to also perfect the defense at this point in time?
There is nothing new in this. So this technology has been in force for the last at least 10 known years, right? In fact, most of the countries, approximately 6 of them, had demonstrated these technologies way back in 2019. We have also been pursuing these technologies. In fact, we have now demonstrated it, whereas there are 3 or 4 countries which has already fielded it. But having said that, there are shortcomings in this technology, because when you talk about any air platform, the cross section that it presents to any radar, that decides whether we are able to track it or not. So when you talk about air defense per se, we talk about a concept called OODA: observe, orient, decide, and act. So if I cannot observe a miniature platform, there is no way that I can track it. What we are talking in a laser system like this is the act part, which is the last part. It will only be able to act when I can observe it, when I can orient my weapon system towards it, and then decide to act on it. The problem is in the first 3 parts, because these drones are increasingly very difficult to detect, and even in night cover, sometimes optical surveillance can help it detect in daytime, but then the range is very restricted. That is when it becomes a surprise target. So even these drones, when you're talking about a sub 30 kilowatt drone, 30 kilowatt laser that you're talking about, it can engage targets at less than 3 to 5 kilometers. 3 to 5 kilometers is like, it's like a probability. It's like tossing a coin. You either had it or you didn't have it. If he comes over your head, mind you, he's carrying a warhead. Even if you shoot it, the chances are that he is going to plummet into your territory, which is not good news for us. So these are very complicated subjects, not very easy to handle. And already, in fact, last year we did assess a patent which was done by an Indian researcher on anti-laser system. So which means while this is a countermeasure, there is a countermeasure which is already in place. So while it is very important for us to understand, have these technologies in our arsenal, there is a long way to go, because this is only one part of the whole jigsaw puzzle of the air defense game. With the air power continuously changing by miniaturization of these platforms, gone are the days when fighter aircrafts would rule the roost. Today we are talking about next generation systems which are totally autonomous in nature, which means we are talking about capabilities which was unheard of even 10 years back. So air power is bound to grow in unprecedented ways. In fact, I had gone on to state that one of the big changes that could happen in air power because of this revolution in AI is going to be beyond our even comprehension. And these are things, in fact, I have shared these with our fellow panelist, Major General Dhruv Katoch. He is well versed with all these subjects. And therefore, it is very important that we continuously evolve. We need to stay invested, and we need to do a lot of work here. Yes, we have crossed that Rubicon as on today, but then there is a long way to go ahead in this game of attack and defense from the air is concerned.
Okay, Major Sudhakar ji, as far as some of the shortcomings that have been listed by Wing Commander Sudhakaran, do you feel that somewhere perhaps even the introduction of artificial intelligence could perhaps help India bridge the gap that we're looking at? It was pointed out by Wing Commander Sudhakaran that some of these capabilities have been out there for at least a decade or so. So clearly the next conversation has to be, how do we then bridge that gap? If we've missed out on a decade's worth of technology, what is it that we must do to really catch up with the rest of the world?
Devika, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show. I dare not challenge what Sudhakaran had said, because he is ultimately technically most qualified, experienced. I am a layman. I am not an expert, but I am also a student of geopolitics, strategy, and technology. I am a very keen reader. You see, this concept, by no means, kindly don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to contest anybody or contradict anyone. I'm just giving you whatever little I've learned from open source. You've asked a very important question. But before I answer the question, bridging the gap is knowing the gap. Firstly, you got to know the gap, like Wing Commander Sudhakaran. What is the gap? So you can identify the gap provided you know what is actually achieved so far, what needs to be achieved, and where are we today. So therefore, it takes me back as a student. You see, directed energy weapons may have been in the environment for past 10 years. Lots of tests and trials are being carried out. It's a very old concept. Where back in US it started, the research actually started in 50s and 60s. But it went through a down phase until the movies on Star Wars started getting beamed or shown world over. So with the Star Wars movie, the concept came. In Star Wars movie, the centrality, one of the central factor was to kill the enemy without a visible weapon system, using the beams, laser beams, or any kind of beam. Could be microwave, could be plasma, could be particle beam. So that time, if I recall correctly, Ronald Reagan was the president. He started the concept in 1983 or 86, somewhere around that time, the Strategic Defense Initiative. But it was a big failure. US failed miserably. But come the beginning of 21st century, it started getting used. You'll be surprised to know that one of the countries which we take for granted, Turkey is a country which successfully and effectively used this particular directed energy in Libya. You go back, I may be wrong, but whatever little I remember, let me just share with the audience. But come the Desert Storm, the Americans claim that by and by they have been developing a lot of microwave, laser, as also particle beam weapon platforms, but they were not effectively used. And in due course of time, what has actually, you have named 3 or 4 countries, Ukraine is using it, Russia has got Stupa, it's like a handheld weapon system, like a rifle, it sends out beams. What does it do? This particular thing is actually, it does not get impacted by gravity, it doesn't get impacted by the wind factor, and it is not visible to the naked eye or the enemy unless you have a technology which enables you to see the beam and counter it. So far, I don't think any such discovery or inventions have taken place. But the fact of the matter is that India, by and by, quietly, we are not way behind. Let me tell you, whatever little I have learned. It appears that we have just started, but our DRDO and the people who matter, they have been carrying out extensive research very early. I would say from 2000 itself, right since 2012 and 16, there have been international media also selectively, they have been sending out some kind of input that India is the only country which has got a weapon platform which need not use kinetic hardware or the ammunition and missiles, but it can defeat any enemy. So that is the power from, and come 2014 and thereafter, it has picked up momentum. And in this picking up momentum, the platform which we have actually demonstrated is something worthy of being celebrated to my mind. And the scientist, whoever is coming in your the tinker, when he says that we have many more under trial, actually speaking, if you ask me frankly, whatever little research I have done, India is got a competitive edge in the direct weapon platforms, and it can beat any country. So you have missed out one country called Germany and UK. UK is carrying out very extensive trial, let me tell you. Pakistan is carrying out trial, by the way. China is miles ahead, no doubt. Russia is miles ahead. But countries like Pakistan, they are also carrying out trial. So what is it? Where is the gap? Being a non-technical, non-science student, where layman's interpretation is that the gap lies in the power of the beam. Firstly, let's understand what are the types of these beams. One is the laser that we are talking of. Second is the microwave. Third is the plasma. Third, they say, fourth one is the milliliter. You know, you would have heard about the Havana syndrome, Cuban syndrome, couple of years, I think 2022, where the American soldiers, they started complaining of nausea, vomiting, you know, the disorientation in the mind. They could not actually, cognitive capabilities has been actually gone down. So that is a weapon system which Sudhakaran is the right person who will explain, or maybe the other panelists, distinguished panelists. But what I have learnt is there are some which are non-lethal. There are some which are lethal. The biggest advantage, like the previous co-panelists have brought out, is that firstly, the logistic cost is minimized. You don't have to go in for missiles. You don't have to produce the defense industry lineup for producing the ammunition. For producing ammunition, you require multiple components. Gunpowder, you require a shell, you require some kind of detonator, something, you know, to trigger, you know, those kind of things. Here is a platform. Once the enemy object is identified, correctly identified, and you fire the beam, it suppresses. If it is a microwave, it suppresses the transmission system. By suppressing or disorienting the pilot held or the guiding system, the oncoming projectile or the missile or the drone, we are talking in relation to the drone because now the drone warfare is picking up momentum, is incapacitated or it is burnt. So to that extent, I personally feel India has come a long way, achieved a big milestone.
Okay.
In microwave weapon platforms or directed energy, this is where India is presently focusing. India is also focusing on the plasma beams and the particle beams.
Okay.
In these, with minimum expenditure, minimum time, you'll be able to destroy a mass drone swarm. Now, what is this drone swarm? Drone swarms are miniature drones which are launched from multiple platforms. Could be aerial, could be from the sea, could be from land, but basically it is from the aerial platforms.
Okay.
But if it is AI driven, the last part, I'll conclude this. You mentioned the intrinsic footprint or integral component of AI, artificially driven. I have carried out an extensive study of AI-driven drone swarms, which have been developed by a professor of USA in Berkeley University for past 30 years. These AI-driven drone swarms have got the capability of going onto the battlefield area, selecting the object or the target, and if it is a human target, it goes, carries out facial recognition, plants itself on the forehead, what we call a third eye in India, and thereafter it drives explosives into the skull of the soldier, and the soldier is killed then and there, and thereafter it attaches itself, goes on to a next target. It can handle multiple targets. That is the capability which the Americans have developed, and I am told unofficially these have been already inducted to quite a few NATO armies. Which are these countries, I don't know, but that is the level of penetration and integration of artificial intelligence with that of this technology.
Okay, I want to give Wing Commander Sudhakaran a chance to respond to that. Wing Commander Sudhakaran, your take on the information that has now been shared by Major Sudhakarji as well.
He has basically echoed what we have said, and he has just corroborated it with his experience. So there is nothing to disagree on that. But having said that, what I told you also is just that, these are technology capabilities that you will have to, build indigenously. You can't go and buy it from others, as we have been doing in the past. So to that extent, last 10 years have been the glorious 10 years since independence for India, or for that matter, I will even say last 1,000 years, because India had almost slowly relegated to a state wherein, it was purely becoming consumerist by nature. So that is number one. Number two is whether these technologies are going to be game changers. Certainly not, because these technologies, as I told you, they have got measures and countermeasures. So there is already protection against laser attacks, and laser attacks have a problem because unless and until they don't have a lock-on on a target for at least 10-15 seconds, they can't punch a hole, which targets generally tend to, get away from. And there are challenges in locking on to such miniature platforms. But having said that, it is definitely going to act against people who are going to be non-state actors, who are not going to have the wherewithal to have targets which are equipped to handle these kind of devices. So it is a yes and a no kind of a thing. The third thing is that it is only on incremental build of these technologies that we will get it into far more advanced stage of existence. So to that extent, again, it is a very important part. So it's a mixed bag. We should have done this at least 10 years back, but we all know the country was busy in doing something else. Now our priorities have changed. The only thing is, the moment we get our policies to act together, we are bound to do far better. See, mind you, we have a demography which is all of 26 years. We have young brains which can think at not only scale, but at capabilities. Our brain is rivaled by none other. That's why India was always called a Sone ki chidiya. It came out of the intellect of the people. So I don't doubt the intellect of our fellow brethren, but what we need to do is act in unison, act together. We need not get divided. We need to act under one single commander, which fortunately we have today. And that's why you see all these innovations and inventions happening. But my only complaint still would be that the pace at which India is delivering is far too slow for its capability. We are not even doing what a UK or a France or an Italy is doing with almost 1/10 of what you have. So that means that we still have a lot to catch up. We have a big potential. We are a sleeping giant. We need to awaken ourselves so that we deliver and compete with the likes of China and US. We should not be running behind them. If not, we are not running ahead of them. At least we should make them run shoulder to shoulder.
Okay, Major Dhruv Katuch, how do you suppose that the government can then perhaps open up the development of such crucial technology to the private sector as well? We mostly are seeing a lot of the initial development of crucial technology by the DRDO or other such government agencies. However, how does the government then create that marriage between the public and the private sector?
Very frankly, while I'm a very strong proponent of the private sector getting in this particular case, it has been the public sector which has been, doing this job for the past decade. I think even more than that. We are already very advanced. Perhaps we don't know how advanced we are. That is one. Number two, the aspect of the counter technologies and counter technologies. That game will always go on. It has been going on for decades, and it will continue for the next few decades. So any change in technology will invite a counter change, and there will be a counter to that counter. So that's an ongoing game. But I think now that we have developed this technology, it may not be appropriate to get the private sector into this particular technology. That may take time. There are other things which the private sector can do. But here, I think what is needed is to get more players into the public sector that to produce at scale. And once we know what we have to produce, and that designing can be given now, once we come to the production stage, I think that what all is required as far as the production is concerned, those codes can be given to the private sector, and then the private sector can go in full scale and manufacture. But the private sector at some point of time will have to come in. Perhaps the time is not now. It may take another 6 months to 1 year, but at some point they will come in. And I'm quite pleased actually with the Indian progress. We've got the soft power. At some point of time we'll beat everybody else. I'm not too depressed. I think we'll do very well. There are certain challenges in this particular technology, especially as far as detection is concerned. That's a question of radars. But I think once you integrate everything into it, it'll work. And our requirements are different to the requirements of the US and Russia and China and everybody else. Our requirements are restricted to our land borders and to the Indian Ocean region. For that, I think we'll be capable enough to thwart off any threats. Devika.
Okay, all right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have, but I thank all of our panelists for joining us on the broadcast to take that conversation forward.